A woman knocked on his door during the snowstorm. The single dad had no idea she was his boss. The wind howled outside like it had a grudge against the world, rattling windows and piling snow higher against the doorstep. Jack Mercer, a single dad juggling 2 jobs and late-night feedings for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, sighed as he shuffled through the cold. His heater had just given up for the evening, leaving the small apartment feeling more like a freezer than home. That's when he heard the knock. A sharp, insistent rap at the door. Who could that be at this hour? He muttered, wiping snow off his jacket. When he opened the door, he found a woman standing there, her coat dusted with snowflakes, hair plastered by the storm, and cheeks red from the cold. She looked worried. "Hi," she said, shivering slightly. My car got stuck down the street and I saw your light on. Could I maybe warm up inside for a few minutes?" Jack hesitated. He didn't know this woman. But then he glanced at Lily, tucked into her blanket on the couch, reading a picture book, and felt the same thought that had carried him through single fatherhood countless times. Kindness first. "Of course," he said, stepping aside. "Come in, you must be freezing." She smiled, grateful, and they both shook off the snow. Jack offered her tea, which she accepted with a small laugh. Conversation started cautiously. About the storm, the traffic, and then about the small joys of everyday life. Hours passed. Outside, the blizzard raged on, but inside there was warmth. Not just from the heater he'd managed to get working again, but from a quiet human connection. Lily offered her a cookie, and the woman laughed at how polite and thoughtful the girl was. Jack found himself smiling more than he had in weeks. At some point, she looked around the modest apartment, her expression softening. "This is really nice," she said. "You've done a wonderful job making it feel like home for her." Jack shrugged, embarrassed. "I do what I can. Not much to work with, but it's ours." The moment was interrupted by Jack's phone buzzing. Late-night work email. Curious, he glanced at the sender. His stomach dropped. It was from the woman in his living room. He looked up at her, stunned. "Wait, you're—" She nodded sheepishly. "Yes, I'm your boss. I didn't expect to see you like this, or I didn't think I'd ever need to come to your neighborhood in a snowstorm. But I'm glad I did," Jack blinked. He had been polite and kind to her without knowing who she was. She had just been a stranger, needing help. And in that act of simple humanity, nothing else mattered. She stayed for a while longer, chatting with Lily and helping Jack clear the snow from his tiny walkway, before finally leaving with a promise to follow up tomorrow. But the impact lingered. The next day at work, things felt different. She didn't treat him with formality or distance. There was a newfound respect, yes, but more importantly, a shared understanding. Human kindness mattered more than hierarchy, more than appearances, more than anything else. And Jack realized something profound. It wasn't about who helped whom, or who was in charge. It was about opening the door when someone needed it, and letting compassion guide your actions. That simple, selfless choice had turned a blizzard into a bridge between lives. Weeks later, when Jack's heating broke again, it was she who called a technician, quietly taking care of it without fanfare. And Jack, once embarrassed, finally smiled at the truth. Kindness always finds its way back, in ways we never expect. And Lily, who had witnessed the whole snowstorm encounter, leaned on his shoulder and said, "Daddy, maybe the world is kind too. Just like us." Jack hugged her tight. Maybe she was right, because sometimes the most extraordinary moments of humanity come from the smallest acts, opening a door, offering warmth, and seeing someone not as a stranger, but as another human being in need. Days turned into weeks, and the snowstorm incident became an unspoken bond between Jack and the woman, his boss, though he still mostly thought of her as the stranger who had knocked on his door that night. Work was different now. She didn't hover, didn't micromanage, but she watched quietly, almost as if she were testing the waters, seeing how he handled challenges without the safety net of authority. Jack noticed it, but instead of pressure, it made him strive harder, not for recognition, but because he wanted to prove that kindness and dedication could coexist. Then one Friday evening, as Jack was leaving the office, he noticed a car double-parked near the entrance. The woman was standing there, coat wrapped tightly around her, hair loose in the wind. She smiled when she saw him. "Hey," she said. "I know it's late, but I wanted to ask, would you like to come by for dinner?" "My treat," Jack hesitated. There was the obvious awkwardness of a boss asking an employee to dinner, but he also remembered the warmth of that night during the storm. "Sure," he said finally, a little unsure. "We'll bring Lily?" She nodded. "Absolutely. I'd like that." When Jack got home and told Lily, her eyes lit up. "Really? She's coming for dinner?" "Yes," he said, laughing at her excitement. "But just remember, manners matter." The night of the dinner, the apartment was filled with the aroma of freshly baked bread and homemade soup. Lily had insisted on setting the table herself, folding napkins carefully and placing them just right. The woman arrived, shaking snow off her boots, and immediately crouched to greet Lily, as if she'd known her forever. Conversations flowed easily about life, work, the challenges of parenting, and the unexpected joys that came from small acts of human kindness. Jack found himself laughing more than he had in months, and Lily kept stealing glances at her, clearly enchanted. But just when the evening felt perfect, the woman's expression shifted. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned, a look of tension that Jack hadn't seen before. "Everything okay?" he asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. "It's complicated. I have to deal with it tomorrow, but I didn't want it to ruin tonight." Jack nodded slowly, sensing that there was more beneath the surface. "Whatever it is, we'll get through it. You're welcome here any time." She looked at him, almost startled by his words, and smiled softly. There was something unspoken between them now, a mixture of gratitude, trust, and a quiet understanding that had been forged during the storm. Outside, the wind howled again, as if reminding them that life could be unpredictable. But inside that small apartment, laughter and warmth held their own kind of power, stronger than any storm. And Jack realized that perhaps, just perhaps, life had a way of bringing the right people to your doorstep at the right moment, even if you didn't know who they truly were at first.